Hey guys, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the Airlift 1000 air helper springs for coil springs here on our 2023 Nissan Pathfinder. These airbags are going to give you a 5 to 35 psi range of adjustability so that you can kind of fine tune exactly how much support you're going to be getting from them. They have a 1,000-pound capacity, and that does not mean that you can add an additional 1,000 pounds to your vehicle's tongue weight capacity or towing capacity. It's only going to help you support that weight. So this is going to just be an enhancement. It's not an addition to what you actually have for your capacities. So the reason why you'd want to get these airbags is just because on a lot of cars like our Nissan Pathfinder, there's not a lot of options. This is going to be one of the only things you can really do to kind of help support that weight, especially if you don't have the option for a weight distribution hitch. If your vehicle or your trailer hitch is not rated for that, then you won't be able to use that to kind of help mitigate some of that sag that you get when you hook up to a trailer. So in place of that, we can go ahead and install those bags inside of our coils, and that's going to help strengthen up those coils and kind of prevent them from compressing as easily as they normally would. And if you need to, you can go ahead and adjust that, like I said, with the 5 to 35 psi range. That way you can really get it to where it's going to ride comfortable while you're towing, and then also when you don't have that heavy load on the back of your vehicle. Another added benefit from these airbags is that while you're not sagging anymore, it's also going to keep your headlights at the correct height so that you're not blinding all the people that are in front of you or just not being able to see everything that's on the road in front of you. And then on top of that, it's also going to help with the suspension wear and then also your tire wear. So you're not going to be putting all that weight on your back tires, lifting up the front ones. Most of your braking power comes from the front wheels, so if they're not making a good enough contact with the ground, you're not going to have that good handling and you're not going to have good braking power. So throwing these on here, getting your ride back to level is going to help save you money in the long run, because you're not going to have to keep replacing these back tires or any other suspension components that could wear out over time. If you don't want the hassle of having to lug around a compressor or stop at your nearest gas station to fill up the PSI or lower it and then readjust it, kind of get it where you need it to, you can also go ahead and pick up an onboard compressor. We have a multitude of different types that will allow you to use a remote. There's a dial one, there's even ones that you can use with your smartphone and get that exactly at that PSI rating that you need it to be at. To start off, we're going to have to decompress our airbag. So we're going to have to go ahead and take off that cap. We're going to set that aside for just a sec. We'll squeeze this down, and as you're doing it, you're also going to want to try and work the sides in a little bit too, so it makes it a little bit easier. You're kind of sticking it between your knees and just kind of squeezing down and kind of folding it in. And then we'll stick our cap back on so that we don't let air back into it. And then while you have it like that, we're going to go ahead and also kind of fold it like a hot dog bun, like it says in the instruction manual. This can be a little bit challenging trying to get it to fold because the bag wants to kind of fight you the whole way. But once you get one side, it'll be a little bit easier. Grab the other. All right. And we want to make sure that we have our spot with our little air inlet facing down. And you can kind of slip that into the coil. You're going to want to angle that down as you slip in. And then we can push the top in. And get it kind of centered again. And we're going to grab our little spacer. This spacer is going to go between our airbag and the bottom of our coil area. There's a little hole in there, so I'm going to stick my finger up in there and let that pop on there, and I'll kind of center it. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull off that black cap and let air back into our bag. We'll get it kind of formed back how it should be and have that little inlet pointing down, and we'll try and work it down into that hole so that we can run our airline to it. So this is how it should look once it's in place. You can see our little inlet, and we have our spacer right there, just kind of helping protect it against this metal. So we'll go ahead, we'll grab our airline and get that hooked on. You'll have a bunch of these little clips in your kit. You want to go ahead and take some pliers and just kind of release the tension on that clip a bit. Slip it through. We'll put that down a couple inches. We'll slip this over the barbed inlet, and then we'll take our pliers and move that clamp up to secure our line in place. When the line comes from the factory, it's also kind of cut at an angle, so you want to make sure that you grab some clippers and cut that off. If you don't have an airline tube cutter, go ahead and pick one up here as well, and that's going to give you a nice straight cut. If you try cutting it with like your razor blade or anything like that, you run the risk of kind of damaging the line or having it not cut straight. And if it's cut at an angle like that, you're not going to get a perfect seal on that airline, and then you're going to have a leakage. We'll go ahead and press this up onto the barb and make sure you get it all the way up. You can kind of see from this little side hole too exactly how far you are on it, so if you need to, at least you'll have that. Hers is just going in blind. I'll move this clip down just a bit, it's kind of in my way. Now that I have that line fully up on there, we can go ahead and raise our clamp all the way up. So once again, just take your needle nose and work it all the way up there. That's going to keep that airline from popping off and help form a nice seal on it as well. Now that we have that secured, we can go ahead and start running our line. Now is the time that you're going to need to decide if you want to do single path or dual path. Single path is going to be where both airlines or both airbags are going to run to a single point. You'll have a T there and it'll run out to your fill port. Now if you want dual path, you can just run these out to wherever you need them to and put that fill port right on it and be good to go. They do recommend sticking a zip tie up in here. There's going to be two little holes, and we're going to get our zip tie in place. It's a little bit easier to get it through those holes if you go ahead and kind of bend it down a little bit. So we're going to stick this in, and we got to try and get it to pop out that other hole. Even with that, it's still kind of fighting us. So I'll probably grab a needle nose pliers, just kind of push it down from the top, and then we're gonna zip tie this line up. Now we do want to be careful. We don't want to have too much slack to where this could fall down and catch something, but we also don't want it to be too tight because this part right here is going to be moving. So we want to make sure that we don't have it too tight to where it's going to break the line. Tighten that down a bit. And like I said, I'm going to leave just a little bit of slack, and then we can keep routing this back. And we can trace these lines right here because these aren't going to be moving. So we'll zip tie it to that. And like I said, you're going to want to leave space because this is a pivoting point right here. Come over. Next, I'm going to run it up by our trailer hitch. We can zip tie it to that as well, and I've kind of already decided where I want to put my fill ports. There's a little bit of a blank space on the outside of our fascia right here, and we've got plenty of room on the inside to easily put our fill port in. So I'm going to bring this line right here, and then we're going to end up cutting it because we're going to be going with single path and installing in that T. Going ahead and cut off the excess that we have here because I'm going to have my T sit right in this spot and run out to our fill port. So we'll go ahead and slip on our clamp. And then we can install our T. Now if it's cold when you're doing this and that line's kind of hard, you can go ahead and heat it up a little bit, stick it in some hot water. That'll make it easier to slip these over the barbs. I want to get it all the way in, which might be a little bit of a struggle. After lots of struggling, I finally have this down here all the way, so we can go ahead and grab our clip, or clamp I should say, and move it down. Get it all the way to the end here. And you can see I've got like one of the barbs is kind of sitting between the two, and that's how you know you're going to get a real good connection here. So we have that in place. Now that we have this sitting here, we can go ahead, we'll do the airbag on our passenger side and route our line over to this area so it can fit in with our T. In your kit, you're going to have this little heat shield here that's going to slip right over your airline. And you're going to line it up so that it's blocking the exhaust from overheating that airline and causing any issues. So we'll pull that all the way through. So we're going to route it pretty much the same. We'll come up, zip tie it just like we did on the other side, and then just trace it over to where our T is. So I ran the line up. Like I said, we have that heat shield on it. I've got it traced up the back side here, and then I have it zip tied to a wire harness we had up top, and then I ran it across this arm all the way over here, and I zip tied it to our hanger for our exhaust on the back side of it, so that way it's never in the way if there's ever a time where you got to lower the exhaust. And then just traced it over to our hitch, and I've got it zip tied to that. We're up to our T now, so I'm going to go ahead and just do the same thing and get that pressed on with a clamp in place. And we'll go ahead and pop on the other side for our T, running out to our fill port. Popped on real easy because I went ahead and kind of soaked it in some hot water just to start, just to make it a little bit easier. So definitely recommend going ahead and doing that because getting it on these barbs can be quite the hassle. Now, if you don't want to cut into your fascia like we're going to do in just a minute here, what you can do is pop out one of these little retainer clips. So if you take a flathead or if you have a trim panel tool, you can pop that out and then you can slip in your fill port. Just drop that down. With that in there, you can go ahead and slip on your washers and your nut to hold that in place. But honestly, I don't really like doing it this way just because then you got that tip facing down. There's a better chance of some road debris or something hitting it, busting that up, and then you're gonna have to replace it. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll drill out a hole in our fascia and get this properly installed. For our fill port, we're gonna have all of these components right here. We're gonna start out with a nut. We'll go ahead and we'll run that down. You don't have to run it all the way down either. You can kind of get this to the right length that you need it to be so that only enough is sticking out when you put the cap on. Then we're gonna have this star washer we'll stick on. Then we're gonna have our fascia slip on here. Then we'll put on our rubber gasket, a flat washer, another nut. And then once that's all on there and it's nice and secure on that fascia, we can go ahead and put on our cap. So let's go ahead and do that now. Get that in place. We'll go ahead, pull our clip down. Might need to grab a needle nose. We're gonna go ahead and take a 5/16 drill bit and we'll cut out a hole. And then we can slip in our fill port. Once this is secure, we'll come back and zip tie it. I did leave a little bit extra in case there's any issues. If we have to cut off a little bit more and fix anything, we can. So we'll go ahead and secure it first and then go on to zip tying up all that excess. And now we'll just go ahead and take a 1/2" wrench and just kind of start tightening this down. Gonna want to hold the back side too, just to keep it from turning on you while you're trying to turn this. Make it just a little bit tighter before I use the wrench. There we go. Now the last thing to do is just inflate our bags. Now when you're doing this, you want to be careful. These only go from a range of about 5 psi up to 35 psi, so we want to make sure that we don't go past that 35 mark. We can end up damaging our bags. So I'll put it right at 10. With our bags inflated, we can go ahead and put on our cap on our fill port, and that'll do it for our installation of the Airlift 1000 air helper springs for coil springs here on our 2023 Nissan Pathfinder. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.